Welcome to HR Voices, a podcast for independent HR and people professionals and the businesses they support. HR Voices is brought to you by the expert team at HR Independence Limited. We hope you enjoy.
Hello, welcome to another edition of HR Voices podcast. I'm your host, Mary Asante. With me here today, I've got the amazing Sally Sidani-Wilkinson. Hi, Sally.
Hi there, Mary.
Hi. So sadly, I haven't got my co-host, Charlotte Alfrey, with me here today. And so this very podcast, we're going to be talking about menopause in the workplace and how organizations and employers can support their employees going through menopause, and how we can all support our colleagues who may be going through menopause in the workplace. I think, as Sally rightfully pointed out to us, October is Menopause Awareness Month, and we are hoping that this particular episode goes a long way into helping raise awareness of menopause in the workplace, and also give some practical tips to people on how to support people going through menopause within your workplace. So before we dive into the topic, if Sally, you can introduce yourself to us and the background to Rebalance by Sally.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate the invitation to talk on the podcast. It's been lovely to meet you, and it's great to help to share, as you say, build awareness of what menopause is, how it affects people in the workplace, and what companies and organisations and workplaces can do to support their colleagues as they go through the menopause. So yeah, my business is Rebalance by Sally. So I help women improve their menopause symptoms through nutrition and lifestyle, through my health coaching background. And I also help organisations support their colleagues. So I kind of have a three-phased approach to that. So phase one is helping with awareness and education about menopause. So making sure that everyone in the workplace, regardless of gender or age, everybody really needs to have a really basic understanding of what the menopause is, what are the signs and symptoms, how does it affect people? Because a lot of people don't realise there's over 40 different symptoms of menopause, and some of those symptoms can be really debilitating. Can you imagine like trying to do a full day's work when you've got a splitting headache or migraine, or you've got joint aches and pains, or you haven't slept at night, you're losing focus and concentration because you haven't been able to get a good night's sleep. These are just some of the symptoms that impact people, as well as like emotional symptoms. So emotional symptoms might be anxiety or depression, or it might be irritability, mood swings. People sometimes find that they're getting isolated. They start to withdraw from team activities at work because they can't cope with the pressure of that. They get anxiety, they lose confidence. So there's over 40 different symptoms which impact people as they go through their menopause. So the first phase for any workplace really is for this understanding phase. What is the menopause? How does it impact people? Second phase of what I help organisations with is putting policies and guidelines in place, because it's really good to have something to signpost colleagues to. So that if they are going through menopause themselves, or if they are supporting a colleague, if you're a manager in your 20s, 30s, you might not have an understanding of menopause. You might not know anyone who's been through menopause. So we make sure that they are fully trained, they're given the tools, and they've got these policies that they can refer to at any point to help their colleagues and support their colleagues through this phase of life. And then the third phase is support. And what does that look like? It varies by organisation. We can do menopause cafes, which are support groups where women can have a safe space to share their experiences of menopause, discuss what they've been going through, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, and just a really nice supportive environment. Or some organisations might want to put menopause champions in place, which are go-to people who are trained on the menopause, so that if an individual is going through menopause and struggling with symptoms, it's impacting their work, then they know who to go to. They've got these menopause champions in the organisation. So providing support for individuals who are going through menopause, they don't need to suffer in silence. I think this has been going on for too many years of people think they have to just put up with their symptoms and get their head down and put up with it. But there are things you can do to improve your symptoms. Obviously, HRT, go to your GP for HRT. And then there's also health coaching. So I'm a health coach, and through nutrition and lifestyle, I help individuals improve their symptoms. And that's not to say that that doesn't work alongside HRT. It's absolutely essential, along HRT as well. And then for individuals who don't want to take HRT or for medical reasons can't take HRT, there are natural solutions as well. So it's really good that everybody understands what options are available to them so they don't have to suffer in silence.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sally, for that comprehensive overview of menopause symptoms, the support out there, and how Rebalance by Sally work with organizations and individuals and support them. But at the very beginning, you talked about the first part of what you do being around the awareness bit, which is helping people to understand what menopause is. So for our listeners, can you explain what menopause is?
Yeah, absolutely. So menopause is actually a single day in time. It's when a person hasn't had a period for 12 consecutive months. And then the period before that we call perimenopause. And a lot of people haven't heard that expression. So it's that period before the 12 months of no periods, we call that perimenopause. And this can happen to a woman at any phase of life. For most women, it's between the ages of 45 and 55, they reach menopause. The average age in the UK is age 51 when people get to menopause. But actually, there's women who are going through menopause in their 20s, 30s, even earlier. So it's really important that everybody understands it and is prepared for it for when it happens. And as I say, there's 40 different symptoms. So every woman is different. They'll have a different age when they reach menopause. They'll have different symptoms during menopause, a different severity of symptoms. And these symptoms can fluctuate. So it's not that they have a few symptoms and that's it. They might have a couple of symptoms one year and then they sort of taper off and they manage to improve those. Then they might get another symptom. So it really does vary. And as I say, we can't treat it as a one size fits all when it comes to menopause. Every person does have a different experience of that, which is why I do encourage, if you are a manager with employees going through the menopause, I do encourage you to take it on a one-to-one basis and really understand from that individual, what is their experience of menopause, what are their symptoms, how is it impacting their work, so that you can sort of personalize your approach to that individual.
So thank you very much for that definition or the explanation of what menopause is, Sally. And although you talk about it's a particular day or phase or stage in time, which is the phase after going about 12 months without your period or your menses, and you go into that phase where you no longer have the menses, and that is your menopause. So I just wanted for us to clarify that it's not, okay, that one day is done and it's over and done with. It's what actually people go into menopause, and that's when the symptoms, the signs, etc., starts to manifest itself. You did talk about the fact that there are about 40 different signs that people can manifest going through the menopause. And I know we haven't got time to go through all 40 of them, but can you tell us more about what some of the signs might be and what people either going through menopause themselves can recognize as some of the signs, or people around them within their workplace, colleagues, managers, etc., can recognize, if at all, that someone might be going through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, exactly what you explained. It's like not that single day in time where you have symptoms. Some people have symptoms for 2, 3 months. Some people have symptoms for decades. There's people still in their 60s and 70s with symptoms. We call that post-menopause. And symptoms do vary, as I say, over that time, and they're fluctuating over time. And every woman has a different experience. So for 25% of women, they may not experience any symptoms at all. But for 75% of women, they do get symptoms. And 25% of women have debilitating symptoms where it really does impact their quality of life. So if we talk about what some of those symptoms are, so first of all, there's physical symptoms. So those symptoms might be things like dry skin, dry hair, dry eyes. You might get skin conditions like itchy skin or eczema. You might get joint pains, muscle pains. They're some of the sort of more physical symptoms. Hot flushes is, one that a lot of people talk about, but it's not the only symptom. For a lot of years, people just said, oh, menopause is just about hot flushes. No, it really isn't. It's a combination of these physical, emotional, and psychological symptoms. The most common are things like sleep problems. So quite often that's when women sort of realize for the first time that they might be in perimenopause, is they start to struggle with their sleep. So either struggle getting to sleep or waking up in the middle of the night. It's typical to be waking up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and not being able to get back to sleep. That's a very common symptom. The hot flushes sometimes come later. So you might find that you're getting a lot of symptoms earlier in the process, and then the hot flushes come later. But again, they can be really debilitating. Can you imagine being in a client meeting or giving a presentation at work and you are literally dripping with sweat? You might have sweat dripping down your back where you need to change your shirt, or you might have sweat dripping down your face, which can be really embarrassing for people. If they are in front of a client or giving a presentation, they might feel that embarrassment. So that's why we really need to normalize these conversations so that everybody understands what that person might be going through, so that they can empathize. So if one of your colleagues, you do see that they are struggling, whether it's with sleep problems or whether it's with a hot flush or irritability, you can show empathy. If you really understand those symptoms and what this person's going through, you can empathize and support them and ask them what support they might need. And then, so those are the more physical symptoms. And then the sort of more psychological, emotional symptoms can be things like mood swings, irritability. You might get that sort of anger and rage, loss of confidence, loss of self-esteem. So again, these can all really impact a person at work. If they're trying to manage a team, or if they've got a very busy job, or if they're standing all day at work, if they're struggling with these symptoms, it can be really difficult. And that's why workplace adjustments and support at work are really important, so that the person doesn't need to leave their job or take sickness absence.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, so it's important for all of us to understand the symptoms, the signs of somebody who may be going through the perimenopausal stage, menopausal or postmenopausal phase in the workplace. And once we become aware of these signs, of these symptoms, what can we actually do in practice to support our colleagues or family members or friends going through this? Because the challenge really is that much as we might want to help and think, oh, I can look at Mary and I can see that she's going through mood swings, or she's doing this, or she's sweating or whatever. It's quite personal.
Yeah.
And how do I know that Mary would be okay with me being empathetic, and I mean outwardly empathetic towards her, and being able to offer practical support?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mary. So I think the starting point is sort of normalizing conversations in the workplace so that individuals feel comfortable and confident talking about their symptoms, whether that's to their own manager or other colleagues or to HR. It's important that you create that environment and that culture where it's normalized to talk about your symptoms. there's been a lot of education on mental health over the last few years, and it's the same situation. We need to normalise these conversations so that people do feel comfortable opening up, talking, listening, and we normalise those conversations. So it's creating that safe environment, that safe culture is sort of the starting point. And then if you are somebody who's going through menopause yourself, then it's really advisable to, first of all, make a note and track your symptoms and make a note of how it's impacting your work. So then you've got a tangible document to take to, whether that's your HR or whether that's to your line manager or to another colleague. You've got a tangible document where you can actually show the symptoms you're experiencing and how it's directly impacting your work. And again, that can then start that conversation. Or if you're not comfortable openly talking about specific symptoms, then you can just talk about, look, I am struggling with menopause symptoms, and provide some ideas of what that means for you and what support you would need. So, it really does help if it comes from the individual themselves, because everybody is different in terms of the way they like to talk about it or the support that they require. So it might be that they're asking for flexible working hours. If they've had a bad night's sleep, they might want to come in later that day. Or if they're struggling with hot flushes, they might need a different uniform, or they might need a quiet room where they can go and down regulate and do some breathing exercise, change their clothing if they have been sweating. So it really depends on the symptoms and the individual. So I would encourage, managers, HR representatives to just start the conversation. Don't directly say, are you in menopause? But you could start an open conversation. Or I've noticed a change in your behavior. Is there anything I can help with? Or just openly asking, how are you feeling today? And that might get the ball rolling of starting those conversations. And then it's down to the individual of how much they want to share.
I think you're absolutely right that culture does play a critical role in being able to have these conversations within the workplace. Because if the person coming to you, either with their symptoms or with their struggles, is able to actually even approach you with that conversation, is mostly dependent on whether the culture of your organization allows for it or not. And also maybe their experiences from what they've witnessed. It might not be themselves, but from others, when they've come forward with things that are important to them and how that may have been used against them within the workplace. So if people come to you, whether it's the manager, whether it's HR, or with leadership, with, look, I'm really struggling in terms of with sleep. So I find myself being extremely tired in the mornings, less productive early mornings, etc. So can I delay my start time by slightly an hour, half an hour, so to give me time to really adjust and get a bit more rest before I start my day? Now, if those requests have been accommodated wherever possible, and I'm conscious that it's not every single organization or business that can accommodate flexible working request, because it sometimes depends on the role of the individual, the size of the organization, etc. But even where we cannot accept or grant flexible working requests, there might be things that we may be able to do within the workplace to support the individuals going through these. So having a culture where, regardless of how small or how large the organization is, somebody can come to you to say, look, here's the case and here is how you might be able to support me, will greatly make a difference.
Absolutely. And it's worth mentioning as well in terms of it, menopause is a protected characteristic under the Equality Act of 2010. So we do need to provide reasonable adjustments. And what reasonable adjustments is obviously depending on the type of organisation. As you say, flexible working maybe isn't available to all organisations, but you can have those open conversations of, in the current role, in the current environment, what adjustments could you make to make that person feel more comfortable. You have a health and safety requirement to make sure that everybody can do the job to the best of their abilities. If you have got menopause symptoms, sometimes you can't do your current job to the best of your abilities with some current conditions. So you might need some flexibility in the current conditions. It might be the change in nature of the role, it might be the changing of hours of the role, it might be more regular breaks. It will really depend on the individual, what their work actually specifically is, what the working environment is, and their symptoms themselves. So that's why it is really important to have that one-on-one dialogue.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sally. So yeah, it is very important, I think, generally, as we creating and raising awareness. And as you're talking and I'm listening to you, because we've touched on different aspects of it. In one of our previous episodes, we covered maternity and mothers returning to work or parents returning to work and how they can be supported in the workplace, etc. And I can almost envisage somebody listening to go, oh, why would I even want to employ specifically women in my workforce? Because if they're of childbearing age, then there's maternity, there's this, there's that to worry about. And as they get older, there's perimenopausal and then menopause and everything else to think about. But I really want to use this time to highlight the amazing skills, competencies, and diversity of experience that women bring into the workplace. And actually, there are a whole host of women who may be out of work, sometimes due to their menopausal, perimenopausal symptoms, etc. So being flexible in your approach, being accommodating as an employer will open doors for a whole host of employees with experience, with the right skill set, and also commitment to you as an employer that you may otherwise not be able to access. So there is really something to explore around the advantage of employing women of menopausal age.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's absolutely critical. If you think about all that knowledge and experience that these people have built up over the years, typically people are in their 40s and 50s when they go through perimenopause and menopause. So imagine all of those people who have so much to add to your organization. Just to share some data with you, 1 in 10 women leave their job because of menopause, because they're not getting support. So why would you want to lose all that knowledge and experience from your organization because you haven't put the right support in place? And as we talked about, Mary, it's like there are some simple things with a bit of flexibility, a few reasonable adjustments can make such a difference to that person's quality of life and that person's ability to work to the best of their abilities. And you're going to retain all of that talent in your organization. They might be at the pinnacle of their careers in senior leadership positions. You don't want to lose all that talent from your senior leadership position because you couldn't make a few reasonable adjustments. So there are things you can do to retain all that valuable talent, but also attract new talent. I think that the generation now coming through and looking for new jobs, they are looking for health and well-being policies. They're looking for the maternity policies. They're looking for the menopause policies. It's showing that the employer cares about women in all stages of life if you put a few simple things in place. And you don't want to lose valuable talent. You want to attract the best talent. A lot of my clients are actually in the tech organizations because they're trying to attract women into tech, and they can do that by providing this support at all ages throughout their careers, and that's invaluable. We don't want menopause to disrupt careers. It should be just a phase of life that women are given the tools and the support to get through while still managing their jobs and doing an amazing job.
Absolutely. And I think recruitment, talent retention is very important, and employees and prospective employees are paying attention to what matters to them. Yeah. And once you've gone past the basic packages and agreeing with it, which for most organizations probably look all the same, because most people will get a basic salary, they may get a pension, they will get a pension, they may get a bonus, they may get life assurance, etc. All those mostly will look the same, regardless of where you look as an employee or a prospective employee looking for job. And where the competitive advantage comes in is how you as an employer treat your people. It's how you put good policies, good practices, and procedures in place in actually creating a much healthier, a much happier, and a more engaging workforce. And that is where looking after all people, not just women, but all the people within the organization, and making reasonable adjustments where necessary to make sure that we accommodate as best as possible each other within the workplace, so that the workplace is not just designed for a selected few to make them feel comfortable when they come into the workplace, but is designed in such a way that everyone, and specifically in relation to today's topic, people going through menopause, are very well accommodated within the workplace. They're well looked after, they're well catered for. And in return, you as the organization get very good employees who are committed, who are dedicated, and give you their very best because they quite simply appreciate the way that you look after them when they needed looking after.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And by doing the menopause support, doing the maternity support, whatever it might be, whatever phase of life for men and women, you are going to get that loyalty. You're going to retain your best employees. You're going to reduce sickness absence is another good point as well, actually. 1 in 5 women will have to take sick leave because of menopause. Well, actually, if you put the right things in place, if you've got the right nutrition and lifestyle, if you get the right support for HRT, you can actually improve your symptoms, and therefore there won't be the need for the sick leave, or you can significantly reduce the need for sick leave. Or if you've got anxiety but you're given support with that, you won't need to take the sick leave. So it'll help to reduce the sickness absence as well. It can help with performance. I think that's really important to know as well. If you've got the right nutrition and lifestyle and support through menopause, you can help people to improve their creativity, improve their productivity, improve their engagement, so that you're getting the best out of your employees as well. You can really enhance their performance by putting a few things in place and guiding them to the right resources to help them with their symptoms.
Absolutely. Yeah, so thank you very much, Sally. Very good and interesting conversations around menopause today and the benefits of employers supporting individuals going through the menopause. And is there anything that you think colleagues can do? They may not be managers, they don't have responsibility for looking after each other. Yes, they have to be good and nice colleagues to their workmates and stuff, or work colleagues. But is there anything that as colleagues we can be doing, or the workforce in general, not focusing on the management or leadership, but what workforce can do to support people going through it?
Yeah, I think listening and empathy are the biggest thing that anybody can do. If you do see somebody struggling, then do reach out and just listen. Even if you don't not going through menopause yourself, even if you don't understand menopause yet because you haven't had the training yet, just listen, because just having somebody to talk to releases this anxiety, releases some of the stress that you're holding inside if you are worrying about your symptoms and you're worrying about the impact of your symptoms on your work. So if you want to be a good colleague, a good friend, then it's not just in the workplace as well. Maybe your partner's going through it, maybe your daughter's going through it, maybe your mum's going through it. I think this applies to everybody in life, is just listen and be empathetic and just offer support, because that goes a long way, because we don't want people to feel like they're alone. Nobody is alone going through the menopause. There's always somebody there to support you, whether that's friends, family, or in the workplace. It's really important to get the support that you need and that you deserve. So do reach out to people if you're going through menopause, and if you can see somebody else struggling, whether that's with mental health or menopause or any number of different things, do just be a sounding board and listen and be a safe pair of hands. Speak confidentially. You make sure that they do understand whatever they share with you is confidential, and just start those conversations and support where you can.
Great. And for the individual who may be going through menopause, what advice or top tip would you give them?
Yeah, again, just do talk to people. You're not alone. Find either other people who are going through the menopause, or speak to your manager if it's affecting your work. Speak to your partner at home, because they may have noticed differences in your behaviour, or because of some of your symptoms. You might be a bit irritable, which will in fact impact not only your work but also your home life as well. So everyone needs an understanding of it so they can support you. You're really not alone in that. And there are different options of how to improve your symptoms, whether that's HRT, whether that's through nutrition and lifestyle, whether that's acupuncture or hypnotherapy. There are things you can do. So there's lots of resources out there with different information about how you can improve your symptoms. So you're not alone. Please do get the support that you deserve.
Thank you very much, Sally, for coming to talk to us today about menopause. And before we round up, what would be your top 3 tips today?
So I think if you're the employer, if you're in an HR role or a leadership role, I think it's putting the right support in place for your colleagues. Even if you're a male-dominated environment, that's actually even more important, because the women in that organisation might not feel they can talk about their symptoms. You don't want to lose that valuable talent from your organisation. So with a few simple things, some education and awareness training for all employees, some support mechanisms, some policies. It doesn't need a lot of money spending on it. It will make a big difference. It will help with your retention. It will help attract new talent to your organisation. It will help with the diversity, inclusion and equality within your organisation. And it will help with the performance of your staff and your employees. So that would be sort of my advice if you are a leader. And if you are an employee who's going through the menopause, don't be afraid to talk about your symptoms. You're not alone. There is an obligation by your employer to support you and to make reasonable adjustments if it's impacting your work. So do be comfortable and confident talking about your symptoms and getting the support that you deserve.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you everyone for tuning into HR Voices podcast. I would love to hear from you if there are any specific topics that you would like us to cover, or if you have any questions on any of the topics that we do discuss on our show. And today specifically, if you have any questions about menopause, please do put it forward. Our contact details are hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. And thank you very much for tuning in, for listening to us, and for watching us today. Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of HR Voices. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Tune in next time.